question about that. But that's it. That's why we held up the money. Now, there was a report.
So the demand for an investigation into the Democrats was part of the reason that he ordered to withhold funding to Ukraine.
The look back to what happened in 2016 certainly was part of the thing that he was worried about in corruption with that nation. And that is absolutely appropriate.
Withholding the funding.
Yeah.
But to be clear, what you just described is a quid pro quo. It is funding will not flow unless the investigation into the Democratic server happens as well.
We do that all the time with foreign policy. Get over it. There's going to be political influence in foreign policy.
Get over it, said the acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney inside the White House briefing room just last month, admitting President Trump withheld military aid in order to pressure Ukraine to conduct investigations into the Bidens and into a 2016 campaign conspiracy theory. Mulvaney, after hearing from the president, later walked back those televised comments. Well, we learned overnight that the House Intelligence Committee has subpoenaed Mulvaney to appear on Capitol Hill and to testify today, this morning, as part of the impeachment probe. Mulvaney, like several others in the Trump administration, is not expected to show up for that deposition. Let's bring in national political reporter for Axios, Jonathan Swan. Jonathan, good morning. So we just learned about this subpoena last night. How did the Intel Committee decide to drop it so late and ask Mulvaney to appear at 9 o'clock this morning, which he probably will not do?
Well, it's not designed to get him in. Right. This is just building a case for adding another article of impeachment around obstruction. And, of course, Mick Mulvaney is not the first White House official to refuse to come and testify. We've had his own aide, Rob Blair. We've had the National Security Council lawyers, John Eisenberg and Michael Ellis. We've had John Bolton. So, you know, it's the exceptions that go and testify, like Tim Morrison, over the objections of the White House counsel. They've been very clear about that. So I see this as part of Adam Schiff building an argument, showing the defiance, and then potentially adding another article of impeachment.
And what would Mick Mulvaney say when confronted with that videotape? You admitted it on camera. It's not a slip of the tongue. It'd be interesting to hear him under sworn testimony explain what he meant by that comment and then later changing it. I was listening to you earlier this morning, Jonathan, talking about how the White House is feeling about the way the impeachment inquiry is proceeding and what might happen when this, if it gets to the Senate, to those Republican jurors. Listening to them one by one make up new excuses and new distractions for the president's behavior, it doesn't look like Republicans are going to move off their votes in support of the president.
They're in I mean, you just have to accept reality for what it is. They're in a very strong position, the White House is. Not because of any grand strategy or four-dimensional chess or war rooms or anything like that, but simply because nothing has budged these senators, nothing has moved them. You did a segment earlier on Jeff Sessions, which kind of says it all. Yeah. And honestly, I think the more, like, you know, we've been talking, you know, who could the 20 be that defy him? Who could the 5 be? I think a scenario that we need to seriously consider is 0. I think there is a not insignificant chance that 0 Republican senators defect if nothing new comes out and we've got the current set of facts that we're dealing with. I mean, we interviewed Mitt Romney, and he is supposedly the weakest brick in the red wall. I mean, he's not there yet. I mean, and just based on the interview we did with him, if he's the weakest brick in that red wall, it's a pretty strong wall over there in the Senate. Even though privately, and as Guy said, who cares, privately they all, you know, not all of them, but a lot of them despise the president, say that they wish they could, you know, politically get away with replacing him with Mike Pence. But none of that matters, because when it comes down to it, and when they have to do things in public in the vote, they step in line.
You know, Willie, it really does come down to, and Donnie, feel free to chime in here as well. It really does come down to one thing, his approval ratings. His approval ratings among Republicans, but also these numbers that we've been showing that were in the 30s. Now they're sitting at 51%, Americans supporting the impeachment and the removal of Donald Trump. If those numbers go up to 55, 60%, that people, after seeing the public testimony, and I'm certainly not saying it is, I'm just saying this very simple calculation. We can't predict who's going to support him and who's not going to support him, but I think we can say that if at the end of the testimony 60% of people in Colorado and Maine and Arizona and in some of these states, Nebraska and some of these states where candidates are in hiding, Republican candidates are in hiding, if 60% of the people in those states support impeachment and removal, then of course you'll probably see a crack in that wall. But as long as we're sitting at the numbers we're sitting at here, it's probably not going to happen.
No, I don't think so. And as Jonathan says, the stories about senators quietly complaining about the president are getting exhausting and becoming thoroughly eye-rolling. That, Donnie, they say if you took a secret ballot, 35 Republicans would vote for impeachment. But at this point, not a single one of them would vote for it publicly.
Yeah, we'll go back to that manhood thing. And I just, everything I don't understand about psychology comes up here, that how these men look at their families, look at their children. I think the important thing that the Democrats have to do going forward in this process, because even if some of them do switch, it's still an insane long shot to think that 20 of them are going to switch. So we're going to be left in January where the House impeached him, the Senate didn't throw him out, and we're kind of just back to square one, which is so important that they've got to frame these hearings in a bigger place so that you're still left with kitchen table issues. So, for instance, if the whole thing is about extortion or betrayal or criminality, you have to bring that back, okay, and he will extort your health care also. Or if it's about, that's the important thing. So that we're left with, this is a halo effect. It's not an isolated thing. It's an indicative thing of how he cheats and steals and betrays you, just like he betrayed you on our national security. He'll betray you on health care. He'll betray you on wages. You have to set the stage. You can't look at this. The Democrats have got to start framing this as an overall branding of Trump, because in the end of the day, we're going to get back to where we started.
Overall branding, Elise, but there is a very specific charge here that's not hard to explain, that the president used his political power, withheld military aid for his personal benefit. That shouldn't be that hard to understand.
Abuse of power. That needs to be the message over and over and over, because that is very easy to understand. And it's the only part that matters.
But it's abuse of power, and the same way he's going to take 20 million people's health insurance away. Abuse of power, it's the same way he's going to do another tax cut for the rich. He betrayed you. He's abusing the office. So set the stage for the bigger kitchen table issues.
Jonathan.